Hello everyone, welcome back to another coloring adventure with CLAldridgeArt. It is Sunday evening at about 9:17 p.m. and I thought we would continue coloring on the watercolor work that I started in this afternoon's live stream. As you can see, if you were at the stream, I have added quite a few more colors and or not more colors, but quite a bit more depth and detail to my dragons, and I'm going to continue to do that and just chat a little bit. I am using, first off, the drawing is called When Dragons Come Calling. It is sold in my Etsy shop. Right now it is only sold as an individual drawing along with the other dragons in this series. I am working on what will eventually be a dragon book. My name is Christine Aldridge, and I am CLAldridgeArt. And if you would like to follow me, I'd love to invite you to like and subscribe. And also, you can follow me at these locations. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as CLAldridgeArt. So if you know the CLAldridge art part, you can find me pretty much anywhere and everywhere, except Amazon is just CLAldridge. So on to what we were doing. Since a little bit later this afternoon, I think the last thing I did on the stream was I started working a little bit with the shadows here on the balustrade, which helped me to establish that the sun is somewhere here over my left shoulder and shining on our dragons. So this guy is getting it sort of here on the base of him. So anything on this side tucked under would be in a little more shadow. And that would also mean that the lower jaw of this guy is getting the sunshine. So the darker shades should all go on this side. So I also darkened up some of his scales. And this is actually a girl dragon, and this is a boy dragon in my head. And so, yeah, let's color something. Let's watercolor something. I do color with, I'm learning to color with a variety of mediums. I am an experimenter. I will pretty much try anything. And I have a great deal of fun when I color, so hopefully you will too. I have just come from starting to watch, and I've got things in the wrong spots. I'm kind of discombobulated here. Okay, so there's the big brush and the smaller brush. I was going to work a little bit more on adding some depth of color down here and in my concrete work. And I'm going to go with a little bit darker shades. And let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put this. You can't really see that, can you? Okay. I will put some black in with this blue. And water that down quite a bit. ending up with quite a dark shade, and that isn't really my intent. So let me clean off that brush. And of course, there are lots of ways to add water. I can use my little repurposed spray bottle. That was a hairspray, travel size hairspray. I think I'm going to add a little bit of this kind of orangey color in. Yeah, that's more what I'm after. Something in the warm family, but a little darker than what I've had. Of course, now the thing about watercolors is that they're always going to dry lighter than the color that you're putting down. So don't panic if it looks a little blotchy to begin with. I am going to go ahead and move that off, since you saw how I mixed that, and just do this. So I was just notified that my dear friend Anne over at A Colorful Life just posted a video where she is coloring from my new mandala book. And that is true. I did before I ever announced that the book was live. I requested that the first 2 copies be printed off and sent to Anne, and so that's what happened. And she's very sweet and has made a video of her coloring in it, which means an awful lot to me. Every time one of you guys does that, or one of the streamers does it. And of course, anytime that you color a work and tag me on social media, I do try and track those down and comment on them. And I try and keep a copy in my coloring book files so that I can, when I do my Celebrate Colorists video, I can include your work in them. So that was just another layer. What I'm doing with the flagstone here is I'm just trying to make it modeled like you would in real life. Now I do want to make my balustrade slightly darker gray, and even though I've already put in some shadow, I can always darken that shadow up. So that is going to be my next idea over here. Let's see here. That's got a fair amount of green in it. So let's see what happens if instead of the green, if I go up here and grab, oops, I need a bigger space, or I need to back out, one of the two. But I'm just grabbing this blue and mixing it in down here with this and quite a bit more water. Once again, this will dry a whole lot lighter than you see it going down. And this is really, really the wrong brush. This is the brush I need, which is the larger brush. This actually may have been still a little too dark. Maybe not. Time will tell. And if that happens, then wait for it to dry and then target it, uh, a little bit at a time. Wet it and blot it up with a clean paper towel. Don't rub so that you don't damage the tooth of the paper. But one of the things about watercolor is that it's very forgiving. It is a very forgiving medium. If you get it wrong, just let it dry and it'll show you where it's wrong, and you just go ahead and fix it, and it's not a problem. And this is, I just love doing this. So anyway, Anne is in the process. I have the video queued up to watch the whole thing later. It's a 2-hour coloring chat. So I watched the first part of it, and then I will go back. But I wanted to record this while I was still wide awake enough to be able to do it. And Sundays are my PBS nights. So normally I am watching, um, I watch Call the Midwife, and then usually I watch whatever is on Masterpiece Theater. And right now, what is on Masterpiece Theater is a wonderful production of Les Mis, but it's not the musical version. It is the actual, because, of course, Les Miserables was a book, not a, not a musical, and a wonderfully written book. And uh, so that is the version that's on. Unfortunately, two things have happened to me. One is that I last saw it as a movie, um, and that was the movie where Hugh Jackman played Val. Uh, oh, good Lord, I can never remember their names. Uh, Hugh Jackman played the good guy, and I don't remember the guy that played the bad guy. Valjean is the good guy, and the other guy is the bad guy. But their roles are swapped in the beginning, and the bad guy thinks the good guy is bad, and the bad guy is always bad. Um, anyway, so basically, I I have those versions in my head. I did try to watch this new version, and I just could not get into it. So I finally, it's a, like a six-parter, and so I stopped watching it rather than ruin the story for myself. Uh, because the last musical version I saw of it, which of course is the one that Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote, um, was the 25th anniversary edition of when it went on Broadway. And Alfie Boe sang the lead role. And I happen to love Alfie Boe. He is a tenor whose the timbre of his voice is very appealing to my ear. So as a result, I can no longer watch anybody else sing it or hear anybody else sing Bring Him Home because the song always makes me cry. And the way that Alfie Boe sang it actually touched my heart. And so I never want to listen to anybody else sing that song ever. So I bought the soundtrack, the 25th anniversary soundtrack, and whenever I want to hear Alfie Boe sing Bring Him Home, I can. Okay. All right. Oh, this is starting to look pretty good. Okay. I'm happy with all of this. I need to restore my shadows, but it's looking uh, a little bit richer in color. Now I am going to put some trees in back here. And so one of the reasons why I'm working so hard to get as much of the dragon outsides done is so I can start to do a background in the air back here. Um, I'm going to go ahead and back out again uh, so I can start laying in some trees back here. And here is another thing, and this is something I wanted to experiment with. You see how I've got this so I want to get that paper really, really wet. And this is just cardstock. This is not watercolor paper at all. But I really want to get these soaked so that I can try and lift out at least a little bit of the fact that I got outside the lines right here. And it doesn't look like that's going to work. So I will just have to go with the flow. Uh, I am going to make a yellowish wash to go on the background. So, and it's going to be a really wet uh, I don't want I just want it to be a whisper of color because air is not white. It's not always clear. It is oftentimes it has a color. And I want it to have a slightly golden cast. because it's daytime. Originally, I was going to make these dragons at night and do, light flowing from the interior of the house. But yeah, that's a little more advanced than I can do right now. So instead, I decided I would just go ahead and make it daylight. And daylight can be either yellow or blue. Um, you don't want to use a sky blue down here in the body of your um, work or all across your landscape, because if you look at a landscape, if you're standing on a mountain and looking out at a view, uh, the sky does not, the blue in the sky does not fall this far. The light is actually yellow. And so that is why I always try and make my air slightly yellow. Then you can add some blue. Not to the yellow, but you can make up a blue. I'm just making a blue, trying to make a blue wash out of what was here. And I want it to be super, super light. Now, I do have a good cerulean blue that I probably should be using to do a sky. But actually, yeah, okay, that's a little better. Get rid of some of that, add a whole lot more water, because I really do want it to be a very, very light. Yeah, okay. See, that is just sort of a barely there kind of blue. And that is exactly what I want for right now, because you can always add color later, but you can't take it away. So if you get it to blue to begin with, then you've got nowhere to go with it. And I'll also be fading that in. I noticed I missed a little bit of yellow down in here. Fade a little of that blue down into the transition. Trying to do it without making green. And that is a little better. I realize that that is very difficult for you guys looking at it to see. Hopefully you can pick up a little bit of the subtlety of that. Okay. So there is that. But now that gives me the chance to, as soon as this is dry, I'll be adding some pine trees in the distance. And I want them to be to make it look like this is really far away, I'll just be tucking them in various spots underneath these guys' chins. And that'll help give distance. Like when I did this one, and see how in the background I just used the very bottom, and I still haven't done the branch on this, but in the very bottom I put in a little green landscape with some gray mountains behind, so that it looked like there was some depth to the picture. Okay, let's see if I can do something with these shadows now to restore them. I am just going to go right back into that darker shade with no additional water. This is the same color, same paint that I did the color wash in. It's just had a chance to dry a little bit now. So it's a little bit more pigmented. I am very chill. For those of you who are used to seeing me be a little more animated. Just still trying to get my mojo back after a couple of weeks of some fairly intensive, whoops. Well, it doesn't do any good if you dump your paintbrush on the floor, which is where that paintbrush landed. So clean off your brush so you're not putting any little pieces of cat fur or anything else that might be on the floor onto your painting. But this week I'm going to get back to drawing more dragons and other things. With 2 new book releases, and both of them doing fairly well. I should have at least some book royalties coming in over the summer, because it does take 60 days. What sells today doesn't pay off till the end of the month, 2 months from now, or 3 months from now, I guess, because everything is in. It's the way that it works, the way that publishing works. Always reminds me of that wimpy cartoon. I will gladly pay you on Tuesday for the hamburger I ate today. And that's the way Amazon works. For what you sell today, you get paid in, if you sell it on the 1st of May, you get paid for it on the 29th day of July. Okay, and let's see here. I think that's all the shadow casting that is being done there. And actually, yeah, this guy might be doing a little shadow casting down here with his chin. If the sun is, coming that way, assuming that his chin is coming over the balustrade a little bit. And our little girl might be casting a little bit of a shadow right there. Okay. Oh, we are looking good on that front. Okay. So now a little bit more. I do want to do one more color wash on my little girl. I need to make her a little more of a bluey blue. Right now she is more of a greeny blue, and I want her to be a bluey blue. So I am going to clean out this spot right here because it was really watered down. There was hardly anything left there. That's that super wash that I made for the blue cerulean sky. And I want my bluey blue. So I need to make sure that I'm at the right spot. That's 1, 2, 3 for that. And 1, 2. It's got to be this one. And indeed, whoops, now I've lost which one it is again. Once again, this is the hard part about having, okay, so that's the, okay, so it's from 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 back from here. 1, 2, 3, this one. Yeah, that's it, right there. Right there is the blue that I want. All those layers underneath this one are still going to work for me. This is just going to be a little more of the color blue that I want. Yeah, okay. And the way, of course, that you keep your paper from peeling is to just be very gentle. This is just 110-pound cardstock from Walmart. It is not watercolor paper, so you just have to be very gentle with your brush. Okay, now we'll just let that dry. That's awfully wet, but it is also now the right color blue for what I want. Now I can work a little bit more on these pretty golden horns and decide the horns that I want. Actually, what I want for her is actually truly that sapphire blue horn. So I am going as pure as I can go with this blue. I'm going to turn over my page because I do better on the downstroke. And so that's what I'm doing. Trying to prevent the water from pooling in that, out at the tips. I'd rather have it pool here at the base. And that is why I wanted to make this a slightly bluer blue. Although, as you can see, it is going to remain predominantly more the greeny blue. Yeah, she's still got a little ways to go before I declare her happily colored. I'm pretty happy with him so far. This is still really wet, so I need to be very careful here that I don't damage my paper. Paper will hold up to water as long as you don't damage the tooth, and just let it dry. Be sure to always let it dry before you put on another coating or another layer. I'm starting to rethink that blue on her horns. We may be able to do something about that later. Okay, well, yeah, I'm really not sure about that. I don't like that color blue. I thought I would. I like it as the wash. I do not like it for the horn color. I may change the horns to something else, but I don't know what quite yet. So I'm not gonna think about that, and I'm not gonna sweat it. I am just going to move on to the next thing until I decide what to do. I've got a couple of choices. I could change it to something like a green because I need something. I don't know that I can lift that all of that blue out of there without damaging stuff. So I could use something opaque to white it out and put down a different color. But I think what I might do is use a glitter gel pen, change them to something like silver, or silver might work. Make him with gold horns and her with silver horns. That might work, actually. Uh, we'll see. Right now, there's a very good chance I won't even show you this video. I may just can it before it ever gets out. Trying to leave a little highlight space in there for that horn. This is just straight yellow ochre. Mixed with just a little bit of water to fade out the edges. Trying to decide where the highlights would be, given where the light is. Oops. God. I got a little bit of blue in my yellow ochre, so I have to go find a new spot to put some down. Yeah, I'm liking golden horns on him. Golden horns were definitely the way to go on this guy. Let's see. Where's the lights? Yeah, I'm liking that. His nose plate got a little dark, but yeah, I can deal with that. Maybe I'll think about it as a shadow coming from her. Let's see if I can. Watercolors are, by their very nature, not opaque. But that doesn't mean we can't try to lighten this up with a little of the lighter yellow. So this is the lemon yellow, and I really am just going straight from the pan directly to the piece. Just to see if we can brighten it up just a tad. Still a long way to go. But looking a little better. Now I've got to decide on the jewel. Do I want a ruby to go with his red? Or do I want to make it a more interesting jewel, like maybe a peridot, a green peridot, which is about the color of his eyes? So if I did a green peridot on him, no, I think I'm going to do a ruby. I do think I'm going to go ahead and do a ruby. So what I want is the very darkest red in this set is called Crimson Lake Deep. And it is this one right here. And then there is alizarin crimson. And permanent rose. I am going to try the alizarin crimson. Okay, so those are the three purples. So the alizarin crimson is the second one. Where are we? Second one in. This one right here. So let me see. Make a little spot for it over here. Add a little water. It's a place to start. Okay, so we'll let that dry and we'll add to it. Let's see, probably didn't even see that, did you? A little bit. And maybe put the peridot on her. And oh, that actually would be a good idea for the horns too. Green horns, peridot green horns. All right, in that case, then I do have to try and lift some of that color out. Let's see if we can do that. I'm going to start with a clean brush, and as clean as the water actually is, because I accidentally dip stuff. So let's see if I can get any of this color up. A little bit, not much. These watercolors may be ink-based. I've heard it speculated that they might be because they are, although I think that once watercolors have dried, they are a little harder to get up than they are once they're down, because they absorb into the actually into the tooth of the paper. I'm getting some of it up. Try and get as much of it up as I can. Okay, let me see what would happen now that I've got it good and wet. Let's see what happens if we hit it with a little of the, okay, what did we say? Peridot? This is a very, the color is called yellowish green. And if we mix it with a little yellow, we get a very peridot type color over here. Yeah, see, that is the right color. What is the worst thing that can happen, guys? I mess it up and I have to start again. That's the worst, absolutely the worst case scenario. So if you're willing to accept the worst case scenario, then you can just simply play. Play with your tools, play with your mediums, just play. See what happens. You might end up making magic, which is what I always say. That what we think are our mistakes are actually art's way of making magic. More often than not. Maybe we'll leave that alone. We'll attempt it by layers. Okay. All righty. Hang on, I'm going to take a little break. We're going to come back. Good morning and welcome back. It is now the next day, and I have been dreaming of dragons all night and looking at this work. Last night before I went to bed, I did do a little bit more. I darkened up my greens down here in my grass closest to the house, assuming that this is the house. I also turned my horns on my little girl a more emerald green, um, just as a start. I played a little bit with darkening up the corners of the jewel, and I've been thinking about his nose plate, and I was actually going to break out. There's a bunch of things that you can do to correct things that you may have done wrong that have occurred to me. The first one, of course, is because I've got the depth of color down, um, I would need something opaque to lighten it back up. And I could do that with gouache paints because gouache is more opaque than your standard watercolors. But that would, it's coloring. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I thought instead what I'd try to do is a couple of different things. One of them is I'm going to take some of this extreme glitter hologram to my horns on this little girl. And so I wanted to show you that. Also, I've got my gel pens out for the little dots on their faces because I think that when we start adding these little details in, I'll be a lot happier with it. And then I'm also going to do some shading and things like that on my um, dragons with Prismacolors. But for right now, what I want to do is put in those trees in the background. So I'm going to go with my watercolor paints. As you can see, I did clean out my palette, mostly because everything in here was so watered down as to be virtually useless as mixing pigments. So instead, what I'm going to do is start fresh with clean brushes, clean water, and go from there. So I want to put in some tree stumps, and I'm turning my um, swatch book so I have an idea of what colors I want. I want to go ahead and use a burnt umber. Uh, so, and in case you're wondering where I got the color names from, this set does come with a swatch card. And on the swatch card are the names and pigment numbers of everything in the set. It's just I did it in my book instead of on the card. So I want a relatively small brush. I want to go ahead and activate my watercolors. And I want to count back from where I know, because I've got my swatch book in order of where these are in the tray. So it's 1, 2, 3. This is the one I want right here. And since it's okay if these are fairly dark, I'm just going to put in a couple of little tree trunks where I want them. And I'm going to turn this over because, as I explained before, I am far better with a straight line on the downstroke, although you would not know that from there. Okay, so some tall, some small. Clean off my brush. And now I want to go for a nice pigment. Um, so I'm thinking a lovely dark green on one side and maybe a bit lighter on the other side to reflect where the sunshine is. And we'll do happy little trees. And hopefully they'll be happy little trees. So I'll take a little bit of, let's see here. This is a hooker's green. And I will mix it with a little bit of my yellow green. Because we're really just going to hint at trees out here. And maybe a little bit of this yellow ochre to make kind of an olivey kind of green, sort of a muted green. Zooming down here. I think you can actually see that. You don't have to worry about too much detail. They're just sort of representative of perhaps a little landscape that's out there. Maybe these are a little closer in. Just so the background doesn't look all plain, you know? And I thought I might paint a dragon in the sky. Or at least hint at a dragon in the sky. Okay, so when you put in little trees like that, they will inform you that maybe they want some little friends. So I'll go back to my brown. Maybe some little friends back here. Maybe there's a hint of a little friend back there. Maybe a few more there. I don't want to get carried away, but on the other hand, I don't want to stop until it tells me that it is done. So some are big and some are small. There we go. A nice little forest of trees. Y'all should live inside my head. You never know what's going to pop out. Okay, so there we go. So we have a nice little forest of trees in the far distance. If I wanted to get really crazy, I'd paint a little house back there, but I'm not feeling that today. Okay, so there is that. Cleaning off Mr. Brush. Beside which I know that this video has already run a little in excess of an hour, and I don't like to make them much longer than that because that's a lot of your time for me to take up. So let's try some of this extreme glitter and see what we can come up with. Now, you do not, and I will repeat this, do not use your good watercolor brushes for acrylic paint. Pick a inexpensive brush, and these I bought. These are the plaid variety. I got these over at Walmart. This is a 1/8 inch brush, fairly small, and I got this over at Walmart um, for, I don't know, a couple bucks. So I'm going to turn this once again because I am better on the downstroke. And this paint, by the way, it dries clear except for the glitter. So it shows whatever is underneath, whatever color is underneath, but the glitter is decidedly green against pretty much every color. And it's called hologram because, of course, a hologram is primarily green. It's one of the more interesting photo effects. And it works similarly to a chroma key. So if you have, those of you who have video editors and know how to use your chroma key, it is the thing that allows a weathercaster to stand in front of that great gigantic, what looks like a map, when really what they're standing in front of is a green screen. And the map is being projected on the green screen, only you can't see it. It's happening inside of a computer. All the weathercaster actually sees is the green screen, and it takes a fair amount of practice for them to know where to point when they're showing you different things, because all they really see is just a green screen. But you see the streets and the weather patterns and the storms and all of that kind of stuff coming. Okay. So look at that. That did just exactly what I wanted it to do. You do want to clean your brush off as soon as possible after you use acrylic paint. Try to make sure that it is as clean as possible, and always dry your brushes in a downward position, which is why I hang mine from a little hook, or I clip something here on the end and then hang it downward like this so that the water doesn't settle in the shaft. because that will ruin your brushes. But even cheap brushes can be kept nice if they're kept clean and treated well. So in this particular case, I'm just going to go ahead and lay it down horizontally on my, and as you see, I just used the tiny amount that was in the cap, and it was more than plenty for this. And now my little girl has sparkling green horns, which is what I kind of wanted for her. So we've got trees and horns, and I was going to, the other thing that I did last night was I darkened up the areas around their eyes to match the color of the dragon. And so now I am going to use a glitter gel pen. Let's see here. That is pink. And this is the black and red. It is red against black, or it is black against red. Now, it is one of the gel pens, and yes, I do swatch everything, including my gel pens. Oh, by the way, this is that opaque, or the hologram. So that's what the hologram looks like when it's just on white paper. And this is it over, what did I use? I used a green watercolor marker. That's a dark gray watercolor marker, but it turns it green. I also have the extreme glitter in gold. And so, yeah, I also have it in a couple of other shades, silver, fuchsia, and red. So if I get into real trouble, I can use it on my dragon. Oh, but that's not what I was doing. Hang on, there it is. Okay. So these are the Pentel Hybrid dual metallic gel pens. Now, as you can see, they do look red against white, but only if you turn it in a certain light. Otherwise, it looks black. And then, of course, it's red against a black background. So I thought I would use this, or not. Maybe not. Maybe I'll stick with straight gold, and maybe not the gold. Maybe I will use the, whoops, this is the orange metallic yellow. And Miss Kenny gifted me with these pens and mentioned that the copper color, which we call this one copper, but it's actually orange and metallic yellow, depending upon what it's against, is the most versatile pen in the set, as far as I'm concerned. And so what I was going to do with this is I was going to zhuzh up some of these dragon scales. Because as Pickle will tell you, for those of you who don't know, Little Pickle is a valued member of the coloring community who has a special affinity for all things glittery. She also likes to paint with food. She and her friend Mia Bear, although I don't think Mia Bear paints with food. But you never know what Pickle is going to be painting with. And I am lucky enough to be able to say that Pickle has colored one of my books and finished it. the whole book. And that is just very cool. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but see how that is going down? Oops. On there. I think it looks really good. I know it's sort of tedious, so I won't make you watch all of it. I will simply hit pause and come back when this part is done. Okay, and it is done. Let's back out a little bit. As you can see, I have been kind of going wild with my glitter pens. And I went and I used the green blue. There's two in here. There's the green blue and the blue blue. So I used the green blue, actually the blue green and the green blue. And they act differently on different, depending upon what they're against. So I used the green blue and did the dots on my little girl. I also used it to outline all of her horns. Hopefully you can see that. And then I used the gold, the pure gold, around the gem and on her golden bands. On him, I used all of the copper color for everything except well, actually, I used the copper color for everything on him. And then I used the red black on his facial dots. So keeping in mind that they don't have to be perfect, I am absolutely happy right now with the way that this particular one has gone. The only couple things that I still want to do is I think I'll just put a little black silhouette of a dragon in back here, and then I will mix my gray and I'll have a slightly lavenderish or blue tone to do the rock work, and then of course there'll be a tremendous amount of shading that I do with pencil on this background, but primarily it's all going to be gray stone with shading for dimensionality. So the next time you see this, it will be posted to Instagram for those of you that followed along with me on this video and on last Sunday's stream. Thank you very much for watching me paint it. Until we meet again, I do encourage you to visit my Etsy shop, see the things that I have for offer. I do have books. I have individual drawings of every drawing that I've ever done are in there as individual drawings or in book form. Obviously, they are far less expensive if you buy the books as opposed to collecting that same amount of individual drawings. But until we meet again, this is Christine Aldridge. Please color something pretty. Thank you. Bye, everybody.